Hello and welcome to a short tutorial on how to sew on your battery pack and your microcontroller. First, thread your needle. Some people like to wet their thread with their mouth. That's kind of gross, but you're the only one touching your thread and your needle. That's okay with me. Otherwise, thread your needle carefully. Fold the thread in half, lining up your ends and centering the needle on the thread. With the ends of the thread in one hand, make a loop with the other and then tuck under the ends to create a knot. Pull it tight, and if you're using a really large needle, you may need to create another knot on top of your first knot so that it doesn't pull through your fabric. Then put it through your fabric and then determine which side of the battery pack you would like to start with. I'm starting with the positive side. And then sew over the edge of the positive terminal at least 3 times. After you have secured the first terminal, you'll sew over to the other positive terminal. Do not sew directly across the battery pack. If you sew directly across the battery pack, when you insert the battery, you will cause a short circuit. So do not sew directly across the battery pack. Instead, sew several small stitches along the top edge in your fabric. As you sew, pull your thread tight and do not allow knots or extra thread on the inside of the fabric. When you reach the other positive terminal, put at least 3 stitches into that terminal. Then flip the fabric over and create a knot by tucking your needle under one of your stitches, creating a loop, putting your needle through the loop, and pulling tight. I usually put in more than one knot. Cut the thread very close to the knot so you do not have a lot of extra thread on the end. Now we will do the same with the negative terminals. We'll sew each terminal down securely with 3 or 4 stitches and sew across. Remember that you don't want your stitches to cross, so when you get your microcontroller, make sure you orient it so that the negative is near the negative and the positive is near the positive. I did not tie off after my last negative terminal. Instead, I am merely stitching straight across to my microcontroller and sewing it on to the negative as well, so that I have a nice wire, if you will, of thread between the two. Then I will knot it off at the negative terminal of the microcontroller. So I stick my needle under the thread, under one of the stitches, make a loop, stick my needle through the loop, and tighten the knot. You want to trim any excess thread from the end of any of your beginnings or endings so that you don't have any extra thread. For those of you who are using a snap as a switch, depending on how you wrote your circuit, you may want to not connect the negative, or you may want to not connect the positive. If you are not using a switch, you'll connect both the positive and the negative. Here's a super fast version of me connecting my positive terminal of my microcontroller to my positive of the battery pack. And I will tie off the ends, and then this is a nice example of what your sewing could look like. Sew on your battery pack and your microcontroller and sew them together. The stitches are nice and tight, there's no extra thread, nothing crosses, and it looks good. Positive to positive, negative to negative. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions.